Hi, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Birding. This is Bob Dolgan. I'm here again with Josh Engel, and we want to just get right to it this week. We had a really awesome day last Sunday, which was the Illinois Backyard Big Day. And for those who don't know what a big day is, it's a day when birders go out, really anyone goes out and counts as many birds or species as they can see in a single day. And Illinois Ornithological Society came up with this super cool concept for last Sunday, the 19th, where people would stay in their backyards or go up on their roofs or explore their property to see as many birds as possible on a single day. So our very own Josh Engel captained Team Josh and ended up with 132 species. Team Adam, which was headed by Adam Sell, ended up with 120 species. I was on that team, by the way. We lost. Okay, I mean we tried our hardest. Josh, you guys were killing it out there, but the day ended up with 30 coverage of 34 counties across the state, 200 households, and a total of 147 species, which is incredible. And I think we were both at similar locations. I was up on the roof of my building. Josh was on the roof of his building. We're in basically the same neighborhood of Uptown. But what are your reactions and takeaways from this day? I think we all learned a lot. What do you think, Josh?
Well, I was really amazed. I was taking in the people's lists who were on my team, which was something like 95 households. And, it was great to see everyone's enthusiasm and how, everyone loved having an excuse to focus on birds and especially right in their area rather than focusing on all of the issues in the world today. So there are a lot of really grateful and happy people to be participating. And that was really nice to see. I've lived in this building for about 8 years now, and I never spent much time up on the roof. It's not publicly accessible. So I arranged with my building manager to get up there, and it was really great to be up there. I mean, I spent 4 or 5 hours over the course of the day, starting at sunrise. And sunrise was great. There were lots of birds flying around. There was happened to be a pretty good morning for migration. So there were blackbirds and robins flying over. So it was really neat to be up there. It's also, an interesting perspective. I could see birds moving around the neighborhood a bit. So, there's been kinglets and sapsuckers and hermit thrushes in my neighborhood, and sort of I could see from up on the roof where they were hanging out, where they were moving, and that was pretty interesting to see too. I'd say my highlights for the day were actually the falcons. I now know that there are two pairs of American kestrels in my neighborhood. One that
Wow.
seems to live to the north and northwest, and one that lives to the east and southeast. So that was really neat to see. I even saw one of the pairs copulating, and I also saw a pair of peregrine falcons that hung out for quite a while over by the lakefront, and I even saw those copulating too. And I still do a little bit. I work with the Chicago Peregrine Program in Mary Hennon at the Field Museum, and so I know a lot about where the peregrines live in Chicago, and it was pretty unexpected to see a pair copulating right near here. I'm not sure which individuals they are, but I could see that at least one was banded. I just don't know. It was too far away to see the bands. How'd
Wow,
you do
that's
up on your
amazing.
roof?
Well, I first should say to get to my roof, I have to put up a ladder and go up about 20 feet from my neighbor's porch into a small hatch that I have to climb through. So that was like an adventure. But yeah, I too hadn't really spent much time on my roof, and have been here a lot of years. And it just opened up this whole new world because you can see. Normally, you're kind of in between buildings, and you're limited. Your field of vision is limited, but I could just see so much more. And the real stunner for me were six great egrets that came flying. I'm not that far from Montrose Beach, so I assume they were kind of flying over from there because they flew east to west down my street, like right over my street, like 20 feet seemingly above the treetops. And I got this a picture of them, and I'm sure we'll put up here. But it was incredible. Like it makes me think like how many things am I missing every day that are flying right over my building.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of reaction from people that was like that, where it's like, what, I never really spent like a day just exploring my immediate surroundings, but a lot of people have often spent their time at Montrose on similar days in the middle of migration. So it was such a cool experience. And then I think some of the, the yard lists from places like Southern Illinois were kind of jaw-dropping, and I don't know if it was which team got the benefit
Yeah,
of some of those lists, but
the final total was 132 for my team to 120 for Adam's team, but of course there was a lot of luck of the draw in that. I didn't really have anything to do with my team winning, but a lot of that difference was actually driven by these yards in Southern Illinois. Broadly across the state, it was amazing to see how many people were reporting things like sapsuckers, brown creepers, ruby-crowned kinglets, even sandhill cranes. Um, Red-headed woodpecker was reported quite a few times, but a big difference was that I had two amazing yards on my team in the far southern part of the state. Rhonda Rothrock's yard in Jackson County and Mark Vukovic's yard in Union County, which must be very wooded areas, judging by their bird lists. And so they were seeing things like yellow-throated warblers and yellow-throated vireos and white-eyed vireos, and they both had Louisiana water thrush in their yard. They had fish crows, which is something that we would never get up here. Of course, Carolina chickadees, but it was really the migrants, all those warblers. Mark even had a very early blackpoll warbler, and Rhonda had a worm-eating warbler, which is a pretty uncommon bird in general. So
yeah.
it was really neat to see how up in northern Illinois we were still in fox sparrows and golden crowned kinglets, whereas down in southern Illinois they were getting their first waves of the neotropical migrant warblers, the more long distance migrants. It was neat to see that. I was happy to have them on my team for sure.
Yeah, lucky you. But yeah, those incredible totals. I think even more than 50 species in a yard. I mean,
Yeah, a couple yards came in with over 50 species.
Yeah.
One other one that I should mention is the Zenner's yard. I think it was over near Peoria. They had somewhere over 50 species too, including what we call the woodpecker slam, which is every possible woodpecker, which includes pileated woodpecker, red-headed woodpecker. So that's pretty good too.
Wow. Yeah, not the woodpecker slam has probably never been achieved in Uptown, unless maybe some, not in the neighborhoods. Maybe
Very
Montrose
true.
had some
Yeah.
weird day where that happened, but holy cow. So I wanted to transition over to another big headline from the past week, and this will be our sort of bird of the week, which is the piping plover. And I think this is a story that's near and dear to my heart, and that is of Monty and Rose and the endangered piping plovers that nested here in Chicago last year. People have really been keeping an eye out and wondering about when those birds will come back. I think depending on who you ask, it was about April 15th, April 19th or so when at least a few piping plovers showed up at Montrose last year. So then we had a report of a sighting up in Waukegan of a piping plover, and because of the bands on their legs, we were able to ID it to the degree that we knew which individual this was, and it's an individual. Her name is Violet, and she's nested in the past along the Platte River of northern Michigan, near Sleeping Bear Dunes, and she's seen at Waukegan Beach a few days ago. But I think the incredible thing about Violet is that now that she's flown all the way up this way from Florida, but also Violet only has 1 foot because of I think an injury with a type of plastic twine or something like that got around her foot at one point. So just these stories are incredible, and what an amazing species in so many ways. But these birds being able to persist, for a couple, 3 years now with 1 foot as a plover blows me away. And
Amazing. Birds can be incredibly resilient. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, and so I think that then we heard later in the week that a plover was seen by a park district contractor behind the barriers of the lakefront that we cannot access right now, and the contractor photographed the plover. I believe his name is Tony Troche, and shared that photo. And a lot of people, their hearts fluttered a bit because it was like, is this Monty or Rose? But it's actually it was determined that it's a plover also from northern Michigan, from North Manitou Island in northern Lake Michigan. So plovers are coming by, and it's going to be, I think, something to continue watching for over the next few days and weeks. And
Yeah, it's been an
it's
amazing thing for me since I started birding. The population of Great Lakes piping plovers has increased so much over the last couple of decades. Um, and one of the benefits of that is that we see them, even we see migrants so much more often than we used to here. And it's really, really sort of a cool thing. Um, and actually, while we're talking about piping plovers, I guess by the time we put this up online, we'll be able to link to a video of the Birds and Bites program from the Chicago Ornithological Society. They're going to be having a whole talk about piping plovers, whole discussion about piping plovers um, that Carl Giametti is going to be hosting. He's going to be the moderator, and there's going to be a talk by Sarah Saunders from National Audubon Society, talking in general about the Great Lakes piping plover population and how that's doing. And then there's going to be a discussion, which you are going to be a part of,
yes.
as well as Brad Semmel from IDNR, who's been instrumental in studying and protecting the piping plovers in Illinois, and Tamimi Itani, who is so instrumental in working with Monty and Rose and getting the
Yeah.
volunteers set up there. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this has seen her beautiful photos of piping plovers from Montrose. So that'll be a great way to um, learn more about the piping plovers in our area, and we'll put up a link to that program on our
Absolutely.
Facebook page.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great. Just there's been a lot of anticipation over the winter, and we couldn't have known we'd be in this situation of social distancing, but there are plans afoot to make sure Monty and Rose or any other plovers that might show up along Illinois beaches are protected this summer, which is really exciting. And so more on that, and I'm sure this will be a continued theme as we go through the spring. There's only last year only 70 plovers, 70 sorry, mating pairs of plovers in all of the Great Lakes as of last year. So it's a super fragile species, and also just a fantastic one on so many fronts. The other piece that we were going to highlight, as the weather sort of changes day to day, week to week, is migratory patterns that are tied to the weather. And I know earlier in the week we've had there's this amazing feature called Birdcast from Cornell Lab of Ornithology that shows the radar just lighting up with birds overnight and on a lot of nights right now, and you can just see. You can really predict when there's going to be a mass movement coming into your area, which is incredible. And it's just, it's amazing that we have that technology. Certainly, growing up as a birder, there was nothing that I know of like that. So, but it's fantastic, and I think even we go out on a day, on a morning like this, and go out and you can confirm that
So
all those birds did move in.
yeah,
You
last
had
night,
some good experience with
well,
that.
last night the radar was looking pretty good for an arrival of birds today. Um, and when I woke up this morning, I heard a white-throated sparrow singing right outside my window, which is a good sign. And so I actually went out for a couple of hours to Sherman Park on the south side of Chicago, and indeed there was a big arrival of birds. Seemed like almost every bird I looked at was a swamp sparrow, but there was actually, working through all the birds there. There's pretty good variety. Um, and if people are going to be monitoring the weather to try to predict good days for birding, one thing that you want to look at, say you're looking at a 10-day forecast or 5-day forecast, anytime that there's a big jump in temperature is going to be a pretty good indication that there's going to be an arrival of birds, because it's southerly winds from the south that are often bringing those warmer temperatures, and that's a tailwind for the birds to bring them up here too. If that southern wind and that warmer temperature is accompanied by rain early in the morning, that could be even better, because that'll prevent the birds from migrating any further, because they don't like to migrate in the rain. The water adds weight to their feathers, so it takes more energy to migrate. So often the rain will force them down. Last night, I guess there were maybe light southerly winds, southwest winds, and there was rain to our south. But for whatever reason, the birds were migrating, and we ended up with a good number of birds here. So that was pretty fun to see.
Yeah, yeah, and it can be quirky. I mean, I've been out on the lakefront on days where it just is there's a harsh northeast wind, and you feel like it's very inhospitable for the birder. but that can often be those can be okay conditions for
Yeah,
seeing
totally.
migrants.
This
And
spring has been pretty cold so far, so which has not been great for migrants. But often you hear birders say that bad weather is good for birding, and that can definitely be true. Yeah.
yeah,
And as we're moving more into the spring and people are trying to get out in whatever limited capacity they can and seeing trees leafing out and flowers blooming, along with the birds arriving, we're going to get into real nice springtime wildlife here in Chicago. And you have a program that you're just starting up, Nature Loves Chicago, that has to do with observing nature in this time. Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah. So we started a program, really a campaign where we would over the next 50 days document Chicago nature, and this can be an opportunity in this era we're in to do just that. And we might be limited because we don't have sporting events to go to. Not all of our parks are open, or our other institutions or restaurants, but we can get out and see nature while adhering to social distancing guidelines. And I'm excited to be a part of this. We just launched on Earth Day, and we see this as a way to it's a campaign for Chicago nature over the next 50 days. And anybody who sees anything, and this could be the humble house sparrow to the the rarity that shows up in one of your planters. But we wanted you to take your pictures and your videos and tag them with Nature Loves Chicago, the hashtag Nature Loves Chicago in English and in Spanish, Naturaleza Ama Chicago, and share your sightings with us. And we think this can be a city, if not region-wide effort to get people excited and involved in sharing their sightings and just continuing to build that community when I think that's something that we're all looking for right now.
Yeah.
So,
Sort of
um,
along the same lines of the iOS Big Day that we started the program talking about bringing people
exactly.
together in a manageable way when you
Yeah.
can't actually get physically together. I think that's a great program.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have more to come on that, but you can check it out at natureloveschicago.org. We're findable on all of the social media platforms. So, check us out. And I think it's right in line with the spirit of This Week in Birding, because I think, we sort of started this. It was like, we just want to be talking about birds in this era and giving people and ourselves an outlet. So thank you so much again, Josh.
Yep, it's great
We'll
to be here
be
as
back.
always.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll be back next week with another episode. And until then, good birding and take care of yourself.